Hi and good afternoon. I'm Khalid Bhatti with the new vlog, and today we will discuss the mass protests that are taking place in Swat and the other parts of the KP province and the increased violence in these areas because both are interconnected, interlinked. Mass protests that erupted few days back in Swat and the other districts like North Waziristan, South Waziristan, Lower Dir and other districts of KP uh, in the northwest of Pakistan. The reason of these protests and the anger that the people have shown on the streets of these areas is the fear that is growing now that Taliban might return back to these areas. And as many people know, that the Taliban are the most reactionary militant group in Pakistan. They were banned few years back because of their terrorist activity and the killings, and they targeted the innocent civilian population, including more than 40 children, young students of the Army Public School in Peshawar, and they were massacred there, including the teachers and the principal. It was a horrible incident that forced the Pakistani military to launch an offensive against the Taliban militants in the tribal areas, and then they were forced to leave these areas, and then the relative peace returned to these areas. But now, since a few months, the people have started to raise their concerns, and they are pointing out that they have seen the activities of these some of the Taliban militants, and it seems they are returning back. They are coming back to these areas. And so people started protesting on the streets, and so far they have sent a very clear message to the Pakistani authorities. The message is very clear and loud that we want peace, we want to live in peace, and we are not ready to accept the return of the Taliban, because the return of the Taliban means that the return of the reign of terror that they have experienced from 2006 to 2009. The Taliban, when they took over Swat and the other areas, surrounding areas, they turned the beautiful valley, known for its beautiful natural lakes, pristine springs, beautiful lush green mountains, waterfalls, orchards. So it's one of the most beautiful areas in Pakistan, and it's also called Switzerland of Pakistan because of its natural beauty. And thousands of people every year from across the country visit these areas during the summer vacations and the summer period because of its mild weather, beautiful, pleasant weather, and because of its natural beauty. But the Taliban, when they took over these areas in 2006 onwards, they turned these areas into living hell for the people. Innocent people were killed, girls' education was banned, schools were bombed and destroyed, the hotels were bombed and blown up because they served tea to the female family members of a family. That was enough to destroy a 4 or 5-story hotels there. It was a destruction, complete destruction. Infrastructure was destroyed, the homes were destroyed, and the people were forced to leave their homes. So that was the reason that the people this time are resisting the return of the Taliban. And why this situation has developed? Because since the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan last year, there was wide hopes in the Pakistani authorities, in the Pakistani ruling class. And at the time when the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan, PTI was in the government in Pakistan. And PTI is known for its pro-Taliban position. They're more sympathetic towards Taliban. So they were, they had the hopes that that's the time now. The Taliban in Afghanistan, they will help us to negotiate and to strike a deal with the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP, which has bases in Afghanistan. Because when the Pakistani military in 2009 and 10, and then in 2014 and 15, launched massive military operations against them, so they leave Pakistan and they move to Afghanistan and they establish their bases there. And since then, they are based there. The Pakistani authorities were used to allege that the Indian RAW, the intelligence agency RAW, and the Afghanistan's intelligence agency, the NDS, National Defense Service, they are behind, they are helping them. And it's true because the TTP and the other militant outfits, the reactionary militant outfits, on the name of Islam, because their slogan was that they want to implement Islam and they want to bring Sharia laws and they want to make Pakistan an exemplary model Islamic society. On the name of Islam, they wreak havoc in Pakistan. More than 80,000 Pakistani people were killed from 2005 towards 2016 and 17. And during that period, hundreds of Pakistani soldiers and officers were killed against the operations and in the fights against with these militant groups and outfits. And the Pakistani economy suffered a huge amount of losses. According to one estimate, Pakistan lost around 110 billion US dollars during that period. And there was hardly any, the sports activities were closed down, the entertainment, the parks were closed down, and there was, Pakistan was converted into a garrison actually, in the literal sense, because of the terrorist activities. There was hardly any day passed through that they didn't organize any terrorist activity or bombing bombing of a school, bombing of a market, targeting the security forces, targeting the innocent civilians, citizens. So they created chaos. They created fear among the people. If they will go out and something might happen. And that was done through the violence. So these groups were armed from tooth to the nail. They used every tactics. They knew that through it they can create fear and create chaos in Pakistan. But then the military decided, after the APS incident in which, as I mentioned earlier, more than 140 students were killed, and most of them were the children of the military officers who were targeted in that. And then the Pakistani military decided to launch a massive offensive against these outfits. And since then, so they leave the area, and after some years, the normalcy returned, the peace established in these areas. But now, from last few months, the violence has once again increased. The phone calls for extortion also increased. And people started insecurity, and they started to feel that the peace has once again been threatened by these elements who are coming back, the militants who are coming back. And all this happened because the Pakistani, as I mentioned earlier, that the PTI government started negotiations with them, and they announced the ceasefire. The Pakistani military stopped operations against these militants, and they said, we will also not attack the Pakistani security forces during the period. But in the last couple of months, the violence increased, and people started raising questions about the peace process, about what is happening. on which conditions the negotiations are they were held and they were going on, and no official word was said from the Pakistani authorities, and it was kept in secret. In-camera sessions of the parliamentary leaders and all different sort of briefings were organized, but publicly nothing was said about that. And but then certainly when some targeted, the people were targeted in Swat and the Lower Dir and the other areas, and the people started to fear, to feel that these people are coming back into their areas, and they might they have to go through again all that pain, all that destruction, all that horrors they faced from 2006 to 9. So immediately they started a spontaneous reaction to it, and they start organizing demonstrations, protests, and it was massive. Like the mass protest that took place on the 10th of October in the largest city of Swat Valley, Mingora. It's also the commercial and industrial hub of Swat Valley. It was massive. And the people were saying, the journalists were saying that they never saw such a crowd in that city before. It was full, it was jam-packed. Every street was packed with the people. Young people, the old ones, the workers, lawyers, journalists, political activists, peasants, the farmers, the traders, all sections of the society. They came together and they protested, and they sent a very clear message that they don't want the reputation of the events that took place between 2006 and 9. They don't want the return of terror. They don't want the return of destruction into their lives, into their areas. So since then, the KP government first denied that nothing is really happening, and it's just a hype created by some political leaders there through the media. It's a media hype, nothing is really happening. But then they started to realize that yes, the situation is getting out of control. So then they showed, no, yes, some people returned, but we are taking care of it, and the people should not worry. And they said, we don't know why the people are protesting for, and the situation is under control, and nothing, no deal was made with the militants, and they were not given the green signal to return to their areas, to their homes, and to start their activities, because there were a lot of rumors and speculations on the social media that the militants have been allowed to return back and to keep their arms, and they are allowed to move around with their arms in different areas, and also and different concessions been offered, but at the end no settlement was agreed. So, and since then the violence has increased. Like 433 people have been killed during this year in 2022, and that is the highest for many years now. The incidence of violence has increased, almost doubled from 152 in 2001 to nearly more than 300 now during 2022. So that really shows, since the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan, the violence has increased in Pakistan, because the Taliban are not forcing the TTP militants to surrender or to stop their activities from Afghanistan into Pakistan. So all the hopes now been dashed. All the hopes that and the illusions that the Taliban government in Afghanistan will force the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the Pakistani wing of the Taliban, not to carry out terrorist activities and violence inside Pakistan. It's all been dashed now. And now the government and the state authorities have started to realize that it was a mistake to think about that, to think like that, and their thoughts about that what will follow after the takeover of Taliban, were proved completely wrong. So on this note, the people have demonstrated so far that they don't want, it's not the people of Pakistan who really support the militancy, who support the reactionary ideas based on, on the name of Islam. They don't support the militancy, they don't support the fundamentalists, but it's the other way around. It's the Pakistani state who facilitate such non-state actors to flourish them, to grow, and then they become a headache and a problem. And then the people, really face the losses. They lost their lives, they lost properties, they lost jobs and everything. So the people are the real victim of that. And this time, the people in Swat and the people of the different districts of Swat has clearly demonstrated that they don't want militancy, they don't want Taliban and the militant groups operating in their areas. They don't want the return of reign of terror they experienced from 2006 and 9. And they don't want, and they have sent a very clear message that they want to live in peace, and they want peace, prosperity, and development in their areas, not the Taliban. That's enough for today. Thanks very much for watching.